Welcome inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for day 2 of preseason camp press coverage. I'm Dan Hope, joined by Andy Anders. Ohio State just wrapped up its second practice of preseason camp. And Andy, I think people have been waiting for us to have one of these where we come on and say great things about Will Howard, and today's going to be that day.
It is. Will looked the best we've seen, I think, by far today, and made a couple of throws where it was, you know, I've been saying my main concern is his downfield accuracy, and he had some nice accurate throws down the field. One in particular that stood out was a wheel route to Travion Henderson that he layered very nicely over coverage over Garrett Stover. And then another really nice pass in the corner of the end zone, which was dropped, but it was right on the money to David Adolph there, about 30, 40 yards down the field. So starting to see some of that chemistry maybe develop for Will Howard, some of that comfort, some of that, he just had more zip, as Ryan Day had said yesterday, had more zip on the throws, had more accurate overall, and that consistency. Wasn't a perfect day, but a great day from Will Howard in terms of progressing. And I mean, this is the first day I think I've sat back and said, yeah, Will Howard looked like the best quarterback on the field today.
He did, and comfort is a good word, because you could really see it, you know, even just in terms of, you know, his pocket presence. He looked very comfortable, you know, did a great job. There were multiple times where I saw him, you know, make multiple reads on a play, go through his progressions to eventually find an open receiver, and those are the kind of things you expect to see from a veteran quarterback. So I think, you know, the progression we saw just from day 1 to day 2, you know, again, just like we talked about on the other side of the equation yesterday, it's just one practice. We'll fortunately be able to come to each of Ohio State's next 2 practices as well. And so we'll see, you know, can he continue to build off of the momentum that we saw from him today? But I think it's a great sign. Like you said, I think today's the first day I come off a practice field and go, okay, that looks like Ohio State's starting quarterback. Like, until then, I'm like, I'm not really seeing it. I come out of today's practice feeling like, okay, if Will can keep playing like that, he can be Ohio State's starting quarterback, and this football team can be really, really good. But I don't want to just talk of Will Howard, because he was not the only quarterback who impressed us today. Devin Brown, he really put an exclamation point on the practice. Final play of the practice, he throws a beautiful long bomb to Bryson Rogers to end the day, send the offense running off the field in celebration. And then Julian Sayin as well continues to flash. I think Julian's that guy that really every time we're out here, he's the guy who kind of flashes the most, but you could still see he's a freshman. I always come away from watching Julian at these practices thinking, a year from now, this guy's going to be really, really good. I don't know that he's quite ready to play yet as a freshman, but the way he zips the ball, the way he can thread balls in between coverage, he doesn't really look like a freshman out there, in the sense that he looks, you know, his skill set looks advanced beyond his years. I don't think he's quite ready to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State yet, especially physically. I think he needs to get bigger and stronger, but you can just see the flashes from him to where the potential for him is sky high.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of your assessments there. And Devin not only had that throw to Bryson Rogers, he had another really nice deep ball to Jeremiah Smith early in practice that went for like a 90-yard touchdown. Yes, we can't go one of these without mentioning Jeremiah Smith, at least in passing. But yeah, Julian, a couple of beautiful throws, like you said, and really, when he's at his highest, I think he's got the highest highs, and you can see he has the highest ceiling of the quarterbacks. But you're right, he had his freshman moments mixed in there. Someone who may have had freshman moments last year, this practice, major standout was Calvin Simpson-Hunt. Multiple pass breakups today, and I think as you're looking to develop maybe some depth at corner behind both Denzel Burke and Davis Nigbinosin on the outside, and then Jordan Hancock at the nickel. That's something you like to see. Jermaine Matthews has worked at the nickel both of the first 2 practices, and it seems like they're trying. Jim Knowles says he's concerned about the depth there today, so they're still trying to develop some things there. But Calvin Simpson-Hunt looking like he did at cornerback, just another great development for the depth.
Yeah, I asked Jim Knowles about both those guys, and you get the impression that, you know, Jermaine's still that first guy off the bench, probably at both cornerback spots right now, partially because Lorenzo Styles Jr. is still recovering from an injury he suffered in the spring. He has not been out there, and so, you know, Jermaine's getting those second-team nickel reps, and I think they feel like he needs to be ready to play that nickel spot in case something does happen to Jordan Hancock. But I think the thing that makes it easier for them to do that is the progression we're seeing from guys like Calvin Simpson-Hunt. I think Aaron Scott has had his moments too. He did get beat on that deep ball you mentioned to Jeremiah Smith, but I think he's been very competitive out there. Again, probably not a guy they're going to lean on much this year as a freshman, but I think you can see the upside there of what he can become as a player. Jim Knowles also talking a lot today about that battle at will linebacker. We did see Sonny Styles take the reps at the first team defense again, so that's kind of more validation to what you said yesterday, that maybe Sonny's the front runner right now, but when Jim Knowles was asked about it, he said that they're neck and neck.
He did, and I think we both have seen flashes from them in practice. Sonny looked like had a sack today and a pass breakup. CJ has been moving around the defense doing different things, and he's been used as a weapon. I think even he's going to be used as a weapon, is what I mean to say. Regardless of whether he wins that job, the same is true for Sonny. But yeah, it speaks to the progression. And Knowles talked about how it doesn't feel like he said with most guys, obviously when you may have a position change, Sonny moving from safety to linebacker, you feel like there's a learning curve. But the terminology he used is that Sonny's at the top of the learning curve. So I guess that means that he's just picking it up easier than a lot of guys. And something else Knowles pointed out is that he's had success moving safeties to linebacker in the past because playing deep safety gives you experience seeing the whole field and understanding how the whole defense operates, which is just helpful when you're running in space at that position and supporting other guys. So that's a competition that I'm still really excited to keep playing out. I think another one that we'll get a little more clarity on as the pads come on and they give full contact here. But where Sonny is at already, having changed positions this offseason, I think really speaks to his football acumen and talent.
We did see Carson Hinsman back on the field today, practicing at center, not at right guard. He was working as one of the two centers with the top lines today, along with Seth McLaughlin, Tegra Shabola, and Luke Montgomery, continuing to take those guards taking those reps at right guard. So that's another position I think we'll see the next couple days. Another position really until the pads come on. It's hard to really evaluate guys, but we'll see the next couple days if they mix things up at all with those lines. But good at least to see Carson Hinsman out there today, getting some reps at that center position where either way, whether he starts at right guard or not, they need him to be ready to play at center, because even if Seth McLaughlin ends up being that starting guy, and even if Carson ends up being that starting right guard, he's going to be the top backup center. And so they need him out there getting reps at both those positions as they kind of continue to evaluate their options on the offensive line. And then, another guy who caught my eye today too was Nick McLarty, the freshman punter from Australia. I mean, he just catches your eye, period, because he's tall. You see him standing next to the other punters at 6'7" and 255 pounds. He's got a little bit of a different body type than the other punters do, and I think he's got a different leg than those guys do too. I think, one thing that really caught my eye today, unfortunately I didn't get it on video, but I was sitting out there watching the punters warm up, and he had a coffin corner punt. He was standing around the 25 or 30 yard line on the opposite side of the field, and there's like a little white box in the right back corner of the end zone, and he landed it in there. And I'm like, wow, like that's the potential that this guy has to be an elite punter. Now, he's not there yet. I think his first 2 days of practice have been pretty inconsistent. One punt you'll see him boom the ball perfectly. The next time you'll see him shank it off the side of his foot out of bounds. And so you'd expect that. This is a guy who's now had 2 practices as an American football player, period. So you'd expect some growing pains. He's going to have to be more consistent over the next few weeks if he's going to eventually be that starting punter. But you certainly see the upside there with him.
Yeah, it's fun to be talking about upside with a punter. We don't get into that kind of conversation much. But yeah, it's going to come down to if he proves he can make those kinds of punts consistently, if he can hit the ball clean consistently, because it's not worth risking that trade-off if you can't trust a guy when you have Anthony Vaneri in the wings, who was a very accomplished punter at Buffalo. You talk about 43 yards a punt on a consistent basis the last 2 years. So that's a guy who has that consistency, but McLarty's got the bigger, stronger leg is kind of the sense we're getting. Another position group I did want to highlight here before we wrap up is tight end. I thought both Jelani and Thurman and Will Kasmerick had great days today. Jelani, that you mentioned that throw that Julian Sayin had to him, made some other really nice catches in there. He's been showing he can get open, I think, these first 2 days of practice, sort of in the middle portions of the passing game, right? That sort of 10 to 20 yard depth down the field, whether it's a seam route, whether it's a crossing route, whether it's a corner. And then Will Kacmarek, man, really flashed for me today. He did have one dropped pass that was kind of off of his fingertips a little bit. That was a really beautiful throw from Julian Sayin, only where he could catch it, but maybe a little out of reach. And but he had a great catch on a crossing route from it was either Devin Brown or Lincoln Keenholz. I couldn't see if it was 3 or 33, but it was a great catch by Kacmarek on a well placed ball. Made a couple more catches I saw, and so I think both he and Jelani showed what they could do in the passing game a little bit today.
Well, as I mentioned before, we will be back here again tomorrow for day 3 of preseason camp at Ohio State. So stay tuned with us at 11warriors.com for much more coverage of preseason camp, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.